Hello and welcome to ETRealty special series of Urban Visionaries. We have with us Mr. Ashok B Lall, founder and principal architect, Ashok B Lall Architects. Hello Mr. Ashok.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Government has been talking about net neutrality. They want to achieve this net zero target by 2070. They have initiated some policies, and even the companies also, because of the enforcement, because of the what government wants to do, they have planned their targets accordingly. They have also announced some kind of plans and targets for 2050, 2070, etc., depending on the companies. But do you see that the implementation level, on the ground level, do you see the government offices, the companies, industry, real estate industry, etc., actually implementing it or moving towards the carbon neutrality or sustainability? If not, what is something that we can do which we are not?
Well, let me start with a positive note.
All right.
I think a good beginning has been made.
Okay.
It was made when the Bureau of Energy Efficiency was given the mandate of introducing or to bringing about energy efficiency in the building sector. Right? They've gone about it very systematically.
Yes.
They've developed the codes. The codes have been broadcast. Now they're being adopted by various states. But the uptake of these codes has been very slow. And the one reason why it has been very slow, whether it is governmental buildings or whether it is commercial buildings or private sector or whatever, why is it very slow? It is because these have not been mandated in building regulations. There is no country in the world that talks of net zero targets which has not mandated the basic things about making buildings energy efficient. It's about time we did it, and now is the time to do it. If you don't do it now, I'm sorry, you will not be able to meet your target of 2070, not even 2050. Okay. Let me come to a bigger issue. We all know, because of the rate of urbanization in our country, our cities, especially the tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 cities, are going to grow very rapidly.
Yes.
We expect that in the next 2 or 3 decades, they will double their size, population-wise. There will be building to accommodate this population. There will be building to accommodate the growth of economy in these cities. What is the future of these cities? What is the opportunity? The opportunity is to have a strong policy of low carbon urban growth. Urban growth and urban development as a cost on our carbon emissions has been a blind spot in our vision towards net zero. It has to now become the focus of our policies. That's the opportunity I see. And there are 2 ways in which you can do it.
Yes.
One is that you must build buildings in such a way that they consume or emit very little carbon. What does that mean? Use little steel and little cement. Build 4 or 5 stories high generally. Right? That will be low carbon construction. Otherwise, you are going in the wrong direction. This high rise, high density, something that looks like Dubai or Singapore is not suitable for us. And it is very high carbon, let me tell you. It's 30% more carbon than a 4 or 5 story high building. Whether it is embodied carbon, the carbon that you emit at the time of construction, whether it is operational carbon, the carbon that you emit in the operation of the building. So choose the right kind of building. Then if you are 4 or 5 stories high, you clear the tree line. You see the sky. Put solar PV on the rooftop. We've got a damn good program going for that. Excellent program.
Yes.
Right? Integrate solar PV on the rooftop, shade the roof, protect the roof from heating up, catch the sunlight, convert it into electricity. And do you know what the calculations say? 80 to 85% of the energy demand of the buildings 4 to 5 stories high can be met by the solar PV integration. Now that's the future for a low carbon urban future.
Right. I will build upon this. So if urban population is to increase, which everyone is expecting, and this will be in tier 2, tier 3 cities and tier 1 cities as well. If this more population comes in, it will be a burden on the infrastructure. We will require houses to accommodate these people. If we are building, for example, 4 or 5 floors of buildings are there, if we are constructing that, do you think we would be we would be able to accommodate these people? If not, is there any kind of solution to this? Because that will also require sewage, water, etc. Infrastructure as well.
Okay.
So if population is to double, we have to construct the houses to have them, to accommodate them, and if we have to be sustainable as well, is there any kind of solution to this?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
First of all, let me explain to you that it is an incorrect assumption that we don't have land.
Okay.
Okay? We are only 2.6% of the land mass of the country is under urban development at the moment.
Oh.
Increase it to 3, increase it to 3.5. Okay?
Mm.
Well, I think we have sufficient land.
Okay.
Secondly, the assumption that building high so that you can be compact in the cities works up to a certain degree of compaction. Make it mid-rise, 4 stories, 5 stories, maybe 6 stories, compact development, right? So that your infrastructure cost comes down,
Right.
transportation becomes affordable, the buildings themselves become affordable. The taller you go, the less affordable it is. And who's going to be the migrant to the city?
Yeah.
What is that person going to afford?
Yeah. True.
Right? So, an affordable, compact city solution is absolutely feasible without having to go high-rise. This is just a numerical assumption. It can be proven that it is not necessary for us.
Right. So whenever you talk to builders, whether it is for residential or commercial development, they are very hesitant to incorporate sustainability in their projects, eco-friendly projects or green projects. One of the reasons is that they don't see the return on investment. So they have to develop a project. जोर से हाँ ठीक है. So whenever we talk to builders, they are very hesitant to incorporate sustainability or eco-friendly elements in their projects because they don't see the return on investment. They have to develop a project and sell it. So for 5 years they have to maintain it, then they have to turn it over to RWA, and RWA is something that they don't have any say on, right? And RWA looks at from the cost perspective. Now, if from an architect perspective, why do you think that these builders are hesitant to develop this project? Do you agree with the statement that they don't see the return on investment? The cost is high for them to develop a project and then deliver it and then see the returns. What is your take? Why is it that builders are hesitant? Why we are not seeing lot of development, commercial or residential, for the sustainable projects?
Well, first of all, I think the blame goes entirely to the architects and designers. If you're a good architect and a designer, at the same cost as the builder has for his estimates, you can deliver a sustainable design.
Oh.
All right? It's sustainability in no way means more expenditure. In fact, I believe that the more sustainable the design, the more economical it will become.
Okay.
Supposing I use less steel in my structural system, is it more sustainable? Yes. Is it more economical? Obviously. All right. If I don't need very elaborate elevators and firefighting systems and goodness knows what else in my building, all right, if I build more simply, it's more sustainable, it's more resilient.
Yeah.
It can take after, the building can look after itself if there's an electricity failure, God forbid. So, and if you just want to make sure that your windows are not too large, that they are well shaded, that the roof is insulated, and the wall has some insulation, and your orientation is carefully selected, right? It is only a matter of design. There is no additional cost involved. The only area where some additional cost is involved is in the management of water systems. So if you want to use the water, treat it, and then recycle it, right? That does add a little bit to the overall cost. But I will tell you, it's not more than 2 or 3% increase over all kinds of costs considered by any builder whatsoever. In fact, the builders go and spend unnecessary amounts of money in incredibly expensive glazing and stainless steel and polished granite and whatnot. And then they talk about not being able to afford a simple design. Architects are completely at fault there, and the builders are totally ill-informed. They don't know where they are putting their money, right? I just want to give a strong message to all builders and to designers. Your first responsibility, all right, is not simply to make your money. your first responsibility is to look after the long-term interest and well-being of your users and customers, architects as well as builders, right? So you cannot deny sustainability. You just can't.
Right.
That's your first principle. If you do, then in the long term, you lose the battle.
Right.
You will not be wanted because the customer is now beginning to demand his due.
That is something that I want to come next. So the next point is that even if some of the builders have started developing these projects, they don't see the uptake from the consumers, buyers, home buyers. They are not looking for eco-friendly elements. They are looking for something that is very flashy. So even if they develop it, builders, they say that we don't see the kind of uptake that we would be willing to develop more projects. So they would develop one, but they will not develop many. So the kind of awareness that is required, so that these buildings are important for the urban planning, or for cities perspective, from urban perspective, even from the people's perspective, that this awareness is required. How do we create this awareness? Who can do this? And how do we make sure that the uptake increases for these kind of projects?
Well, it's a very simple answer to your question, actually. First of all, if the builder is convinced, right, that what he is putting in as sustainable design is for the well-being of the occupant, then he will have the way of communicating the value of that well-being to the occupant.
Right.
Unfortunately, the builder himself is not convinced about that.
Yes.
And he is making an excuse for not doing it.
Yes, true.
Unfortunately, he thinks that and he's developed this sales pitch कि वो हैंडल कितना चमक रहा है, किस तरह की टाइल लगी है, उसको इससे मतलब नहीं है कि आपकी जो खिड़की जो डूबते हुए सूरज की तरफ देख रही है, उससे इतनी गर्मी अंदर पैदा होगी तो आप घर पे रहोगे नहीं, आप क्लब चले जाओगे.
True.
Doesn't see that. All right. So the builder's own understanding of well-being is at the moment misplaced. Whose job is it to set it right? Certainly it is the job of the architects to set it right.
Yeah.
Certainly it is the job of the professional communities to inform the clients, to inform the users that this is what you deserve and this is what you shall get. I'll tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
I have been telling everybody I meet, you are not going to buy a top floor apartment if its roof is not well insulated, it does not have a reflective finish. You are simply not going to buy it because otherwise you'll bake inside there.
True.
Don't do it. You're not going to buy an apartment which has large glazing facing the east or the west without shading outside because you're going to roast inside. You're just not going to buy it.
Yes.
Okay? Now, people ask me, why do you say that? Well, look at your own house. I have friends who are struggling with bad design.
Yeah.
All right? And now they know that they can demand it. So once, I think it won't be long before Magic Bricks puts it on its website saying, don't buy these properties, but buy these properties because 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Okay, and now about the age of a building. So in general, what we have seen, the historical monuments have been there for years, for decades, for generations. But the buildings that we are developing now, the buildings we have been developing in the past 50, 60, 70 years, their age has lessened. The buildings that they have already started showing cracks. They have already deteriorating. We are going to redevelopment in most of the projects. We are seeing demolition of the projects. We are seeing that they are coming down on their own. Now, where do you think this lacks? Is it because of the design that we are developing? Is it because of the environmental impact that is there? Because building bylaws are strict. Building bylaws are there. If there is a flaw in the building bylaws, you can also tell about it. But is it about the builders that are developing it? Is the structural engineers, the products that we are using? What is it that the age of building has come down? Why we are seeing so many collapses? Why we are seeing so many cracks? Why we are seeing these kind of buildings which are just 50, 20, 30 years of age?
Well, one of the facts about reinforced concrete is that it will naturally deteriorate. After about 60 years, it will start deteriorating.
Okay.
So reinforced concrete building, no matter how well it is built, will start deteriorating slowly from 60 years onwards. This is a fact about concrete. So reinforced concrete is a modern material. We're using it a great deal.
Yeah.
And what we used to build with was sort of load-bearing brick masonry or stone and materials that will just last forever. Nothing will go wrong with them. Right? So we've got a technology that is susceptible to slow deterioration over time.
Yeah.
It's like poorly treated timber.
Yeah.
It will happen. Okay. So that's one reason. The second reason, of course, is that some people cheat, whether it is a designer, whether it is the contractor, or it is the builder. They cheat, and they put the public at risk. And now we can see the results of putting the public at risk. They're getting punished.
Yeah.
All
True.
right? So they will learn very soon that they better not cheat on any of these things. They better pay full attention to this.
Yes.
And they should claim, as their brand value, the reliability of their product in terms of its quality of construction.
Right.
I think that's what has to happen.
I understand that there are a lot of projects that you are developing. Can you give us some example of, if you are not using concrete, what is it that we can use, architects can go for, builders can go for, which is at cost level it is same, but it will be long lasting, it will be more useful?
Well, let me tell you frankly, that buildings that are about 4 to 5 stories high can be built with different techniques of construction which are semi-load bearing, where good brickwork or masonry walling construction combined with a little bit of steel can give you a very lasting structure. All right? And these buildings can last longer than a tall RCC frame structure.
Yes.
Especially when you have a tall steel frame structure which is not well protected. Protecting steel frame is a big job, by the way, right? Against fire risks and as well against rusting. It's a big job. It's very expensive to do. So once again, if you choose the right type of building to build for the masses, for most people, I'm not talking about the 5-10% at the top.
Yes.
I'm talking about for most people. You're going to be more sustainable in the long term, and your buildings will last for a longer time because of the simpler construction and the materials that can be employed in such buildings.
Okay. Now if we talk about urban plannings. Now in the last few months we have seen an uptake in the ACs. The people who are buying ACs, we have seen an uptake on it. We are seeing a lot of heat wave that is happening, and this is year on year. This is happening now. This is very frequent now. Every year we see this kind of heat waves. DDA recently agreed when it was disclosed it with the Delhi High Court that they cut a lot of trees without permission, and this has been happening across India with different authorities, not just authorities, even the builders etc. have been cutting trees without permissions, or if they have permission of 100 cutting 100 trees, they will be cutting 200. Aravali's, we are seeing a lot of illegal construction that is happening, and even if after the High Court has announced that there should not be any kind of development, it's still happening. All this leads to the kind of heat wave, the kind of climate change we are seeing, the kind of water scarcity that is happening. As an architect, as an urban planner, where do you see we are going? What do you think we should be doing? What do you think was the fault, and why we are seeing a frequent heat wave? How can we protect ourselves against it, or how can we reduce the kind of impact that heat waves are happening? Because having more ACs is not a solution. It is only increasing the energy, it is only increasing the other impact that it is happening on climate. So what is your take on that?
Okay, global warming has come upon us. There's a general rise in temperatures globally. As we've seen over the last 5 to 7 years, we've had more frequent heat waves, and the intensity of the heat waves as well as the duration of heat waves has increased. All right. And there are certain parts of the country that are especially affected by this. So temperatures generally are going to rise. What happens in cities? In cities, if you build very densely, if you don't have soft ground and lots of trees and enough water bodies, if you have lots and lots of road with all kinds of parking, if you have roads full of cars that are hardly moving, all right, you're going to generate much more heat in the city itself.
True.
You'll absorb the heat from the sun, and you absorb the heat from the sun you have more air conditioning. The air conditioning system pumps the heat from the inside to the outside, adds more heat as it consumes more electricity.
Yeah.
The fuel of the cars consumes the fuel of the fuel and converts that into the heat around the buildings. And then you have what's called an urban heat island effect, vicious cycle.
Right.
This vicious cycle has been growing as we have gone intensifying the development pattern of our cities.
Yeah.
So we have to learn what is the optimal level of intensification, and after which we have to keep the cities a bit more sparse, more space for greenery, more space for water, less tarmac area, and public transportation, so that you don't have so many cars creating traffic jams. So this is again planning for the future.
Yeah.
What has happened, and we can do a little bit to alleviate that. But there is a possibility of what you can do.
Do you agree with the hub and spoke model that few of the countries have been planning and they have been doing it? If can it be done in India? So for instance, if Bangalore is a particular city, we have some kind of offices, we have some kind of headquarters there, and then we develop smaller cities or smaller township around it, and then it's act as a hub and spoke model. Do you think this can be something that can help us?
Yeah, it's a combination. What happens is that the larger cities will continue to grow in themselves. They'll re-densify to a certain extent. They will also expand to a certain extent. But along the main corridors of travel, transport routes, you can have other centers which are connected by rapid transit. Okay. Then it begins to work because the density of development has something to do with travel time also, the advantage of a certain location. So yes, a hub and spoke model has been tried out in many parts of Europe and quite effectively. All right. Holland is a damn good example of it, how it has worked very well. And you should ask them what is their principles for going towards low carbon urban futures. What are the principles they follow?
The other part of it is the existing buildings that are there. So we can plan for a greenfield project. We can plan for something that is coming new, that will be constructed. We can plan about it. But the existing structures that are there in old Delhi, in old Bangalore, in old Mumbai, the existing buildings that are there, existing infrastructure that is there, how do we incorporate sustainability in them? How do we make sure that they become sustainable?
Okay, when we talk about sustainability in existing cities, we are really basically talking about two things.
Okay.
We're talking about reducing the consumption of electricity, right, and also integrating into the city fabric more clean energy, all right, solar PV or wind or whatever it may be. That's one. The other is also conserving water. We're not talking about the other climate change related risks of flooding and so on right at the moment, but I'm talking about these two lines of conservation. A great deal can be done in existing buildings too. Especially reducing air conditioning demand in existing buildings is a great opportunity. We should have a budget, we should have a financing mechanism for retrofitting existing buildings. Not only their equipment, making it more efficient, better air conditioning equipment, more efficient lighting fixtures and so on. Not only that, but actually redoing the envelope of the building so that you can protect it from the heat that's coming in from the outside. This is very doable, and we need to have more financing for that. And we need to have expertise to make that happen.
But who will do it? So for instance, if I say who will finance it, why will they finance it? So if government finances it, that will be from the taxpayers' incentive, and what will the government get out of it? And if a builder does it, they will look at some kind of FAR benefit or TDR benefit.
I completely disagree with you. You don't give FAR benefit for saving something. What you're going to save, you're going to spend on the FAR. So that's not the right way to do it.
All right. So
yes, give financial incentives. Reduce the tax, reduce the property tax, all right? Give a rebate on electricity consumption. If you're below a certain level of electricity consumption, you have a much lower amount to pay. But if you exceed it, you're penalized. You'll automatically do that. So electricity consumption policy also has to reflect this objective, okay? And retrofitting is a great opportunity. All our huge glass towers can be retrofitted, all right? And you can bring down the energy consumption by 30 to 40%. I see in your own building, all the blinds are down and the sun is still streaming in, and you've got air conditioning over here.
True.
Doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Retrofit it straight away. Be the first demo.
Even if we include green buildings mandatory in building bylaws, can we also see some kind of green incentives that should be provided to private industry, the real estate industry, that can motivate them to build such kind of projects?
Sure.
Also the independent houses that are being built. So for instance, if I am building my own house, right, if I am getting some kind of incentive, if I am getting some kind of rebate in the taxes, etc., I am paying, then I will be motivated that I should use this. This should be something that state government, because this comes under every state. Do you think this is something that can come up, that can be used, and is there anything that is being done right now?
Okay, so you also have, in any incentive policy, there's usually a complementary, disincentive policy.
Okay.
All right. So if you look at electricity, if your electricity consumption is up to, say, in a residential building, is up to 30 EPI, energy performance index of 30, which is 30 kilowatt hours per square meter per annum. If it is up to that, right, then the electricity charges that you pay are very low. That's your incentive. If it exceeds 50, and it suddenly skyrockets. In between is whatever is going on at the moment. Then it suddenly skyrockets. So conserving electricity by building design or by operation of the building becomes an incentive for you.
Okay.
And if you've designed a new building or retrofitted an old building with that in mind, whether it is a private developer or a homeowner or somebody, they can do this calculation, and that calculation can be provided that yes, you'll get back your money by saving in electricity. Same thing can go with water, although conserving water is more complicated when you're looking at existing buildings. But certainly electricity, it can definitely be done.
Okay. Because you were talking about urban planning just a bit before, cities like Bangalore, cities like Chennai. So Bangalore just recently saw water scarcity, a lot of it. In Chennai, we see regular floods that is happening. In Gurgaon, if rain happens for 2-3 days on a regular frequent basis, we see floods. This happens across India, in all the major cities that we boast about, that these are the top cities that we have. Even the smaller cities face this kind of challenges. Why is it that these cities, urban planners are there? There are a lot of townships that are there. Even then we see this kind of things happening on a regular basis. Municipal corporation is there, development authority is there, but there is nothing we learn from it, and even if we learn from it, we are not implementing it. Where do we lack?
Well, I think we have a very fundamental gap here.
Okay.
In our theories and practices of urban planning and urban management, environmental security, right, which is enough water, right, freedom from any drainage hazards, proper drainage, enough greenery space for water and greenery, so that you can keep your environmental temperatures down. Environmental security is not an integral principle or primary principle of urban planning, right? It is not, you won't see these words written anywhere. That's the first problem.
That's true.
Okay. Now, when you exceed the availability of natural resources, Bangalore, the water has to be pumped up from down below, hundreds of meters uphill, to feed water to a city which is constantly growing. Obviously, it's going to run short.
Yes.
All right. So you have to know what are the carrying capacity limits of the place where your city is located. After that, go for hub and spoke.
Yes.
All right. So that's where the problem is. You exceed the environmental capacities of a zone, of a region, you're bound to face these problems, and you can't overcome them by engineering. It's not possible. You've seen it in Mumbai. You've seen it in Gurgaon. You can't overcome it. It's all gone wrong because you have not got the principle of not exceeding the environmental capacity of a zone or a region. Cities cannot be growing all the time at no expense. It's not possible. It's a huge expense. All right, and this expense is externalized. Somebody else is paying for it. Delhi mein pani kahan se aata hai, boss? गंगोत्री से लेके आना पड़ता है. You know, all kinds of places you have to come, and still you fall short.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we should really think of decentralizing, depopulating, spreading the population a bit more across the landscape for us to have a sustainable future. I think it needs a significant rethink.
Now, because of this, we want to talk about the government policies. Now, there used to be a 5-year plan that we used to make before. Every 5 years there used to be a plan about it, and majority of it was for different aspects, but city planning, urban planning was also part of it. Then that was abolished, that was left behind. Then we came, Niti Aayog in 2021 came up with a reform of urban planning policies that was there. It has not been implemented as of now. We talked about smart cities, government started implementing it, 100 smart cities. We talked about Amrit, cities that we will develop in the smaller regions. We talked about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. We have talked about a lot of other things that have taken place. But on the ground level, the implementation has been very limited. So obviously there has been some kind of growth that we have seen in some of the cities, in some of the places, but it has not been there on a regular basis. You said that urban development is not, urban growth is not something that government has taken in measure when they are planning for cities. We are
low carbon urban growth.
Low carbon urban growth. We are also not talking about environmental security.
That's right.
What is it from a government policies perspective can be done? What would you suggest to government that these are the things that should be brought in from the policies perspective, and these are the policies that should be implemented if government is very serious about achieving the 2020 net zero target?
If you are serious about achieving your 2017 net zero target, you have announced it to the world. And I think it's ambitious.
Yes.
And yet it is doable. What are the implications of such an announcement? On the one hand, you are talking about replacement of carbonaceous fuels with clean energy.
Yeah.
That's a strong program that is going ahead. But on the other hand, you're talking about energy efficiency, reducing the demand for coal-based or oil-based energy supply. What has happened at the moment is, and there's a link here with environmental security, which also has to do with the availability of water, because climate change is connected to water scarcity also, all right? From this overall commitment devolved two major policy guidelines. One is what I call low carbon urban development and urban growth, which must take sustainability into account and devise principles and guidelines for urban planning and urban growth which incorporate this objective. This objective must be incorporated in that, right? And same with the building sector, construction sector. These objectives have to be stated, all right? And from those objectives, the policy will then devolve, because we are looking at everything in separate buckets, whether it is Amrit or whether it is Swachh Bharat or whatever other programs that you have. One very good thing that I would say has happened is because of the information revolution and the communications revolution, it's possible to gather a lot of data. Now, you know what the citizen wants to know? The citizen wants to know which direction is my city going. Is it going more sustainable or is it going less sustainable?
True.
How will the citizen know about that? Very simple. If I know that is in this month per capita so much diesel and petrol was bought in my city per capita, and this is increasing per capita, then I'm going down. If it is reducing per capita, then I'm going up.
True.
All right? If the proportion of clean energy being used in the city as a whole is increasing per capita, then I'm going ahead. But if it is decreasing per capita, I'm going down. If the water that I'm drinking every day, if most of it is coming from far away, and more of it is going to come from far away, and less of it is being gathered locally, then I know I'm going down, I become less resilient.
True.
So there are these three simple measures that should be announced to the population of the city every month, this is where your city is headed, and then it will become an election demand.
True. That is a very good point. SEBI, which is a regulatory body, they announced a BRSR score. This score is now being mandated for from FY23 for top 100 companies, then 1000, then to all. Now, according to this, as of now, the companies have to disclose the carbon neutrality steps that they have taken, or the kind of net zero targets that they have announced that they want to do, and the things that they have been doing for that. So, the steps that they have taken. But as of now, this is a disclosure. This is similar to what US regulatory body had announced also. Do you think this is something that will make it, this will be some kind of step that is in the right direction? Because if companies start disclosing it, people will know about it. If people know about it, they will have to up their game. Every year they have to disclose, every month, every quarter they have to disclose it. So, they have to up their game that now we are doing this, now we are doing this. Do you think this is something that can help the company especially to move towards the carbon neutrality targets?
Okay, the psychology that is driving this policy is that the shareholders of the company care for sustainability.
Yes.
The investors in companies care for sustainability.
Yes.
So, more money will flow to people who are more serious about sustainability, are going in the right direction, and less money will flow to the others. So, this is an investor driven model, okay? And it depends on the values of the investor. The investor values at a global level have shifted dramatically in favor of sustainable futures. And therefore, in international exchanges, this has become a very serious competition. It's brought here, I think it's a good thing on the whole, right? But what is happening globally,
yes,
if you look at what's the name of this French company, Total, all right? Total is the one company that is switching over from carbonaceous fuels to hydrogen and solar PV.
Oh.
That's their plan. In other words, a company, a developer can't say, sir, I'm going to build 20-story houses with RCC and steel and glass and will continue to do that, and I'll still go net zero. Not possible. You have to change your business model.
Yes.
So, if companies are willing and motivated to reinvent themselves towards net zero, then it will work. Otherwise, it's greenwash.
Whenever builders say net zero, because I just because you mentioned this, whenever builders say net zero, they are developing their projects like in the traditional method, but they will grow more trees. They will do some kind of rainwater harvesting. They will do some kind of water sewage or solar panel, etc. And they will say that we have achieved the net zero. But actually, it's not net zero. If their carbon emission is increasing, they are only doing this type of step to. If you look at average, it's net zero. But do you think that is actually makes sense?
I agree with you. This is what I call greenwash. You really have to rethink your business model to pursue net zero aggressively and show how it can be. How it can work.
Yeah.
I think it is basically business as usual with a little bit of dressing up. All right, that's what's happening by and large with builders.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, I don't know of any builder of repute. Maybe ITC is an exception. All right, I don't know of any builder of repute who is serious about net zero.
Okay. Last 2 or 3 questions. One is the green funds that have come in. A lot of foreign companies that have established in India, they have been, because their policies have been same across globe, so they have brought in the same policies in India, and they want to have a sustainable green building, green office or green building, residential, etc. Then there are green funds that will only fund projects which show that they are actually carbon neutral or eco-friendly, etc. So, these are the funds that are coming in India. But at the same time, India has announced carbon credits. Carbon credits is a policy that is there in Europe for a long time now, where anybody can trade carbon credits. Right. So, if I am doing some kind of carbon emission a lot and other company is doing a good job, I can buy a credit from them for some things. Right. In having this policy at the very initial stage, when we are still moving towards carbon neutrality, do you think this will be a hindrance? Do you think this is something that can, you know, derail for what we are trying to achieve? And the green funds and the things that were talked about, do you think that is some kind of positive things that can happen, that can help us in achieving those targets?
Okay, sorry, I don't quite understand how carbon credits and bonds really work.
Okay.
I'm not very sure exactly how they work. But it's a kind of a trade that if I'm a bad man, I can buy goodness from somewhere else and say I'm okay now because I put money where the good stuff is happening to atone for my sins. Okay, so I think that's bad policy. Frankly, I don't believe in that. It's not the ethically correct approach. Okay, but the green funds that are coming in, I think that is fantastic. I know that there are many funds that have come into India for financing affordable green housing. They say, what is the big need of this nation? Everybody must have a home, and it must be a green home.
Yes.
We'll put money there. Show us how you do it. They are financing companies and banks to roll this out. So if money speaks and can drive green construction and green practices, this is going to have a real effect. And it's not very difficult to achieve.
True. And the foreign companies that are coming in and bringing in the kind of policies that they have globally, do you think this also benefits?
Yes. Now look, this is interesting. The big multinational companies that are coming in, establishing their offices, etc. over here, their facilities over here, they come with certain very high standards of energy efficiency, of you know, reducing the carbon emissions of their operations significantly. They want to keep it down. They're very serious about it. They demonstrate that there is a working business model if you build like this, if you design like this, if you operate like this. They are great demonstrators, and they'll show us that with the right skills, right, the right commitment, right management, okay, you can get there, and the business will still flourish.
Right. True.
Right. So I think that's a great thing that's happening.
Right. Last two questions. The low cost, sustainable, affordable housing that we talked about, because see, we require affordable housing on a large scale. PMAY is there, but it still needs a lot of affordable housing from the private players as well.
That's right.
But these construction of homes, if they start having without sustainability, that would be a problem. I understand there are projects that you are involved with which are low cost, sustainable, and affordable. What would your suggestion, advice, and with examples you can talk about to builders, to governments, and to architects would be, how do we achieve this, that if even if we are developing affordable housing, we can have sustainability incorporated in it. If we can have eco-friendly homes and it's still affordable and it can be developed in mass stage.
Okay. As far as construction of green affordable homes is concerned, it's actually very simple. It is economical. It is cheaper than doing bad design.
Okay.
Okay. That's construction. But affordability has two parts in the private sector.
Oh, okay.
It has the value of the land where you're located and the cost of construction. On both of these, somebody wants to earn a profit. Okay. What makes things unaffordable and perpetuates slums is that the land value is too high.
Yes.
We need an aggressive program, a clear program for taking out certain chunks of land in cities from the speculative land markets and making it available for affordable housing, maybe on a leasehold basis. All right, and that is the correct route for affordable green housing for the future. It'll, you know, as far as design and construction are concerned, we have done it even on market value of land. This is in Chennai, this is in Palghar. We've developed a very interesting project in Ambur in Tamil Nadu also, where it is shown that this is very doable. It's all affordable, right? Even on market purchase of land. But if you were to control the price of land, especially in the tier 2 cities, then I think you'll see a sea change in the availability of this, and you'll see a reduction in slum growth. Otherwise, you will not be able to stop slum growth.
Yeah. Okay. Last is learning from other countries. So China has seen a construction at a different level from any other cities. Most of the construction, most of the steel usage, most of the concrete usage, cement use has been with China.
Correct.
And they have been developing cities like crazy. and that has impacted their overall environment, right? We have the kind of similar kind of population. We have to build some kind of houses, we have to build some kind of other infrastructure that is required, so metro, rail, etc., airports, etc. That will, what we can learn from, my question is what we can learn from China, what they did wrong and what we can do right. Other than that, the cities that we see in Middle East, the cities that we see in Europe, the kind of high-rise towers that we see, do you think that is something that is required in India? Do you think this is something that makes sense to India, or the kind of things that we can learn from them and not learn from their mistakes, or learn from the good things that they are doing in Europe or etc., which can be implemented locally in India?
Yeah, okay. First, China.
Yeah.
Everybody is saying China has made some big mistakes. They invested too quickly in very high density urban development, and now they've got excess stock.
Yes.
And it has also deteriorated the urban environments.
Yes.
Urban heat island has grown, pollution has increased, traffic jams have started happening, etc. So it's not working. So obviously, high-rise, high-density model is not going the right direction.
Okay.
Let's take a step back. If you say low-carbon urban life is our future, is our sustainable future, state that as your objective. Where do you find the least per capita carbon emissions?
In
Do you
villages.
know where? In Barcelona.
Oh.
Right? You find it in Baroda today, surprisingly. Singapore is high. Hong Kong is terrible. New York is even worse. Oh no, Hong Kong is worse than New York, okay? Because of the amount of energy that is required to operate these very tall buildings and the intensity of infrastructure that has to be managed, even though it is compact, the per capita carbon emissions of Hong Kong is perhaps the highest in the globe. I don't know, I may not be right in that, but there's a correlation between high-rise, high-density and carbon emissions. All right? Barcelona, Paris is much better. Okay? Now Paris, even the heart of Paris, the old city of Paris, is a very dense city. Okay? Barcelona is also a very dense city. It's so dense that transportation, school education, community services, health services, all of that can be provided economically because of the density of population. But it does not have to go high-rise. And it's true of Baroda, believe it or not. Okay? So we have examples which tell us what is the fabric and nature of cities that will survive in the long run at low carbon per capita consumption. We know that now, that data is available. We should simply learn from it.
One last question, I forgot to ask this. This is from an architect's perspective. Now, the buildings that we have been developing in all the cities that we see, they are very similar. They will be high-rise, they will be glass shades, they will have some kind of rectangle structure, but there is not much difference if we go from Chennai to Bangalore to Hyderabad to any other cities. The buildings that we used to have in Lucknow, the building that we used to have in Jaipur, they had their own regional aspects to it. They had their own culture to it. They had their own existence to it. And this was same for different states that we went in. What is it that stopped us from developing this kind of projects? Do you think architects are responsible for this? Because if it's a very plain structure, it's easy to build, it will be low cost, etc. But if can we incorporate this kind of own culture, having their own identity, a state, a city's identity within the buildings? Do you think it's possible? And why is it that if it is, why is it's not happening?
Well, the reasons. There are three reasons for why it has gone the way you're saying. Everything looks the same, the same skyscraper with lots of glass, etc., etc. There are three reasons for it. One is that the nature of the building is very different from the traditional building.
Okay.
Right. It cannot be the same. Second is that the person who is asking for the building has some notion of what it should look like because he travels the world and he's seen it all and said, I want it to be like that. Right? He doesn't know whether that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but it's like wearing the right kind of tie, you know. Right? So he wants to be part of the club.
Yes.
And the third is that we, our professional group, right, are very happy to satisfy that gentleman or that lady, whoever she may be,
Yeah.
right, to pander to their ego without taking responsibility, which is the professional responsibility,
Yeah.
of saying, can we design this building according to the climate? Can we design it in such a way that it reflects the local culture in some form, right? Can it add to the culture of the city?
Yeah.
All right. So those are the reasons. I think all three of them play together, and you go the way that you've seen.
If so, building if it's in Shimla, it's a cold climate,
Yeah.
right? If it's the building in Rajasthan, it's
Yeah,
a hot
they'll be
climate.
very different.
So every climate is different, but the buildings are same.
That's because, as I told you, this is because of somebody is driving the image and nobody is critically examining it, and the architects and designers are completely failing in their professional duty. That's why this is happening. But on the other hand, if, as I keep saying, if you were to build 4 or 5 stories high, okay,
then
many more craftspeople, different kinds of material, different kinds of design, local culture, all this finds a natural expression. And as the city grows and changes over time, old buildings come down, new buildings get put up, things get renovated. You know what happens when you have a fine-grained construction which is constantly changing, right? It's like your skin changing. You don't even notice it, all right? Your skin changes naturally. But if you have a city like Hong Kong, where a 50-story fellow has to be brought down, it's like amputating your arm.
True.
It's traumatic, okay? So it's not an organic form of life. It's not the true, it's not a system that produces, I would say, an affordable, shareable, sustainable urban culture.
Thank you, Mr. Ashok. It was indeed a great discussion. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, and do follow ETRealty.